The bloop sound, the unanswered call from deep space. In 1997, in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean, a strange sound rang out. It was unlike any sound ever recorded by humans. A deep, low, yet powerful enough to be picked up by sonar sensors miles away. Scientists gave it a simple, short, and somewhat unicorn-like name, Bloop. Don't let the like button be lonely. Don't let the share button wither. And don't let the subscribe button wait for you forever. But don't let the clever name fool you. Bloop is not the sound of a whale or the sound of a replenishment ship. It is a mystery, an unknown entity floating in the dense waves of the ocean, a place where humans have explored less than 10% of it. The sound appeared suddenly. It never happened again. No trace. No who on the other side made it. In the years since, the bloop has become a legend in the world of sonar, where science and mystery collide, and where the imagination soars farther than transoceanic radio waves. Was it the call of a creature never seen before? Or a sign of an extraterrestrial technology visiting our oceans? Or worse, the final groan of a civilization lost millions of years ago? In a journey of more than 25,000 words, we will decode the bloop, one of the planet's most terrifying and fascinating mysteries. We will travel back to 1997, hear the sound through the ears of scientists, delve into the technology and sensors that recorded it, trace the precise location where the bloop sounded, and discover what lies hidden in the seafloor map. We'll also consider every hypothesis, from icebergs to earthquakes to creatures to the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence. And finally, we'll ask, if the bloop was indeed a warning, who detected it? And do we have the data to answer? Chapter 1. The 1997 event, when the ocean blooped. On May 19, 1997, in a small apartment at the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, while scientists were checking routine data from a hydrophone network deep in the Pacific Ocean, a signal suddenly appeared on the screen. At first, no one really paid much attention. It was just a strange musical note in the version that was broadcast to the ocean every day. But then, when the hydrophone experts began to analyze the technique more closely, they realized this was unlike anything they had ever seen or heard before. An impossible sound. The sound, later dubbed Bloop, was recorded by NOAA's hydrophone, a network of underwater sensors spanning thousands of kilometers, developed during the Cold War to eavesdrop on Soviet ships. In the pitch-black silence of the ocean floor, the system is incredibly sensitive, able to detect the sounds of nuclear explosions or even icebergs crashing. But the bloop didn't sound like an explosion. It lasted about a minute with a very distinct increase in frequency, like someone turning down a volume knob. It started at a very low frequency, well beyond the range of human hearing, then rose from there, like an ancient groan echoing from the ocean floor. What was even more remarkable was the intensity of the sound. It was too loud. We know of no known creature that can make a sound that loud, said Dr. Christopher Fox, a NOAA oceanographer. It was picked up not by one, but by multiple sonar variants more than 5,000 kilometers apart. That means the sound must have been incredibly powerful, enough to travel that distance. The scary thing, it didn't cause local trauma, wasn't accompanied by volcanic activity, and there weren't any other event happening in the area at the time. In other words, the bloop was a lonely, isolated sound, but powerful enough to reach the farthest corners of the ocean. The mystery between the two. NOAA doesn't identify the sound, but it does have an estimated magnitude for where the bloop came from. It was located at coordinates about 50 degrees north, 100 degrees west, in the middle of the South Pacific, a desolate, butterfly-shaped area with no land mass for hundreds of miles. It's called the Point Nemo area, and it's been called the most remote place on Earth from humans. Point Nemo is the furthest place from land, meaning that if you were adrift here, the closest point to human habitation might be a space station flying towards you. The location of the bloop is almost identical to this area, adding to the mystery. Could there be something hidden deep below the ocean that humanity has never known about? The location is also close to something else something that fans of fiction will find fascinating. The relaxation described by H.P. Lovecraft as the city of R'lyeh, home of the ancient Terror Cthulhu. While this is just a bizarre coincidence, for those who love Lovecraftian theories, Bloop is the call of something becoming themselves in eternal sleep. NOAA announced, then silence. After several months of analysis, NOAA released the Bloop sound to the scientific community and the public in 1997. Some researchers published here that the sound could be from a broken iceberg or a collision between icebergs, but that could not solve the powerful transmission ability of the sound. Gradually, this sound spread to the paranormal science community, Reddit, UFO forums, and even horror fiction writers. All of them began to weave strange theories, from the Leviathan monster to ancient creatures to alien technology washed up on the bottom of the sea. The strange thing is, after 1997, the Bloop never appeared again. The NOAA network is still running, still collecting tons of sounds every month. But not once has a sound similar to the Bloop in frequency, volume, and quality been recorded. The Bloop is like a ghostly name that rings out in the ocean and then quietly disappears. The sound is not for the user. One of the attractive elements of the Bloop is that humans cannot hear it without fast-forwarding and adjusting the frequency. The original Bloop sound is below the human hearing threshold, meaning if you were floating in the ocean when the Bloop happened, you would have no idea that something terrible had just sounded below you. However, when NOAA engineers adjusted the frequency and increased the recording speed by 16 times, what came out was a strange sound, like a bloop, that you might imagine from a household item. This gives rise to the humorous, yet graphic, name Bloop. The question remains, if humans cannot hear this sound when it occurs, who or what is hearing it? The premise for the hypothesis crazy. Soon after the Bloop was announced, many theories began to bloom. A giant, previously unknown creature, one that can produce a sound louder than the blue whale, the largest creature on the planet. An ancient entity awakening from the depths of the sea, like Cthulhu in Lovecraftian legends. A dimensional portal where sounds leak from another universe. An ancient civilization's equipment buried at the bottom of the sea, starting to function again after millions of years of silence. A warning, a message, or a curse, all because of a sound that lasted less than a minute. The beginning of a quest that spans centuries. The Bloop event of 1997 was more than just a recording. It was the starting point of a journey to find the truth that lasted more than 2 decades. Since then, researchers have been searching for any signs of something different in the ocean, from strange sounds to unrecorded biological phenomena to magnetic anomalies at the Bloop coordinates. And in the following chapters, we will delve into each of them. Chapter 1 End. A sound appears in the loneliest place on the planet. No one knows where it came from. No one knows why it sounded only once. And no one knows whether it will ever return. But like all great mysteries, the Bloop is not dead. It is just waiting to be solved. So, if it is neither biological nor natural, what is the Bloop? To answer that question, we need to go back to the origins of underwater recording technology, to top-secret Cold War equipment, and to things the U.S. Navy never released. Great! After getting acquainted with the mysterious sound Bloop in Chapter 1, we will move on to Chapter 2, where we will reveal the secrets behind the technology that has helped humans hear the voice of the deep ocean. This is where science meets conspiracy, and where the underwater headphones become unwilling witnesses to things that no one believes are true. Chapter 2. The sonar system and the secret ear of the ocean. In the vast ocean, where sunlight has never reached, there is an invisible network, silent but always listening. It is the sonar system, one of the most silent but greatest engineering works that humans have ever built. And it is the headphone that has received the Bloop sound, the strange whisper of the ocean. But behind that system is a long story, interwoven with the Cold War, ocean espionage, and secrets that have never been deciphered. The origin of the Cold War, the SOSUS system. To understand why Bloop was recorded, we must first go back in time to the 1950s. It was a time when the world was immersed in the fear of nuclear war, where the US and the Soviet Union competed not only in the sky, but also under the ocean. When nuclear missile submarines became a strategic deterrent, the US knew they needed something to hear the enemy moving in the deep darkness of the ocean. And so, the SOSUS, Sound Surveillance System was born, a giant network of hydrophone sensors placed on the ocean floor, tasked with listening for any suspicious sounds. These hydrophones are connected by submarine cables to analysis stations on shore. The sounds are recorded, filtered, and analyzed by algorithms and human ears. SOSUS operates in near secret, with no one outside the military and a handful of scientists allowed access to the data. Interestingly, part of the SOSUS system was later turned over to NOAA for scientific research, and it was this platform that recorded the Bloop in 1997. SOFAR channel. The ocean whispers over thousands of miles. Why is the Bloop heard over thousands of miles? The answer lies in a unique natural phenomenon. The SOFAR channel, sound fixing and ranging channel. A special layer of water between 600 and 1,200 meters deep, where sound waves can travel very far without being scattered or absorbed much. SOFAR acts as a natural acoustic pipe in the ocean. When a sound falls into this layer, it can travel thousands of kilometers with almost no loss of energy. This is what allowed the Bloop sound, even though it originated in the middle of the South Pacific, to be picked up by sensors as far away as Hawaii or South America. SOFAR is an extension of the unknown. Once a sound enters it, it can go anywhere and be heard by anyone who is listening. And somehow, Bloop hit the SOFAR layer. NOAA, when science inherits spy technology. After the Cold War ended, many elements of SOSUS were declassified and handed over to NOAA, an agency that monitors climate, seismology, and ocean biology. They called the new system the Equatorial Pacific Ocean Autonomous Hydrophone Array, a network of sensors that stretched across the Equatorial Pacific Ocean, and where the Bloop sound was recorded in 1997. Here's the irony. The very instruments that were created to listen to America's enemies ended up recording something that no one could define as enemy or friend. Inside the control room, where the nameless sounds get names. Imagine you're an engineer working at a NOAA data center in 1997. Every day, you look at dozens of hydrophone recordings, all kinds of sounds, blue whale calls, icebergs breaking, soft earthquakes from the seafloor, and sometimes a suspicious explosion. Then one day, you hear a series of sound waves that are unlike anything you've heard before. Not seismic, not fishy, not ship-like. It's deep but loud, strange but consistent. You fast forward, increase the frequency, and what you hear is a bloop. Sounds so strange that it makes you stop. And then, to describe it to your colleagues, you call it simply bloop. Not because it's a creature, not because it's supernatural, just because it sounds like it. But sometimes, simple names can be incredibly mysterious. Similar sounds? Or is it unique? NOAA records hundreds of sounds every day, and in the years after the Bloop, they recorded similar sounds, like Julia, slow down, train, and whistle. But all of these sounds were not of the same intensity, and most were explained by icequake, sliding of ice under water pressure, mild tectonic collision, underwater volcanic activity. Only the Bloop remained unexplained at the time, leading many to believe that the sensor may have recorded a non-recurring event. A single event, unpredictable, impossible to simulate. And that's what makes it so scary. The ear can hear, but can it hear everything? As sophisticated as the sonar system is, it has its limitations. It can only hear sounds. It can't determine what images, shapes, or physical processes have occurred. A bloop sounds, but below, is there a giant ice whale, an open portal, or a space-time collapse? No one knows. In other words, we can hear something happening, but we can't see what actually happened. This makes the bloop a kind of ghost signal, something that current technology can only ask questions about but not answer. What the Navy won't say. Some independent researchers suspect that, with a full SOSUS network, the Navy may know more than NOAA has released. Perhaps the original data contains many audio segments that were cut, encrypted, or never released. There are even rumors that a Navy task force once approached the Bloop coordinates in a nuclear submarine, months after the sound was recorded. But none of this has been confirmed. And like any great mystery, the quieter it is, the more theories there are. Chapter 2 Conclusion. In the depths of the ocean, amid the endless currents and the cold darkness, there are invisible ears, always listening, always recording. And one day in 1997, they heard something no one ever thought they would hear. But if the ears heard, then which eyes saw it? And if Bloop is indeed a call from an unknown entity, who heard it first? And has anyone answered? Let's continue our journey into the deep ocean with the fascinating Chapter 3, where science begins to grapple with the unexplainable. Chapter 3. Decoding the sound, biology, geology, or something beyond science. When the Bloop sound was recorded in 1997, scientists initially knew only one thing. It was an extremely loud, biologically sounding sound coming from the South Pacific Ocean near Antarctica. But where did it come from? How did it travel thousands of kilometers? And most importantly, what caused it? In this chapter, we explore the biggest theories and fiercest debates that have ever surrounded this mysterious sound. Hypothesis 1. A giant living creature under the sea. Since the Bloop was announced, one of the most widely circulated theories, both in the scientific community and among the mystery-loving community, has been that the sound came from a living creature. More specifically, it has the hallmarks of biological sound, a low, sustained frequency, like the communication sounds of whales, a steady amplitude, suggesting a source with controlled intensity, a clear rhythmic structure, not the random noises of inorganic nature. Dr. Christopher Fox of NOAA once said, "Based on the characteristics of the sound, it sounds like it came from a living creature, but if so, it would be larger than any creature we know of. Bigger than the blue whale, the largest creature ever recorded on Earth. So, something even larger is living in the ocean? Could a creature that big exist? Let's do a little math. The blue whale makes a sound at about 188 dB in water. That's already extremely loud. The Bloop, recorded thousands of kilometers away, was still powerful enough to analyze. If it was a biological sound, the creature making it would have to be many times larger than the blue whale, hundreds of meters long or more. The problem is, there are no specimens, no photos, no reports of ship collisions, just the sound. That has led many to compare the creature to legends like the Kraken, the giant octopus of Norse mythology, the Leviathan, the sea monster from the Bible, or the Cthulhu creature, described by H.P. Lovecraft in the novel The Call of Cthulhu, which lives in the very South Pacific near where the Bloop was made. The creepy coincidence is that Bloop's coordinates are very close to Cthulhu's fictional city of Relaya, according to Lovecraft. Of course, many people see this as a humorous association, but when you don't have a clear explanation, anything is possible. Hypothesis 2. Geological phenomenon. Cracked ice, underwater volcano, or tsunami. NOAA later gave an official explanation. The sound was likely coming from icebergs breaking apart, a form of icequake. Specifically, in Antarctica, icebergs several kilometers thick can fracture and collide under great pressure. This event can create extremely powerful sounds, transmitted through the SOFAR channel. The sound can mimic biological patterns due to its natural frequency structure. However, the reason many people do not fully believe this hypothesis is because other icequakes recorded have not had the same intensity or frequency as Bloop. The Bloop seems more organic, as if it were intentional rather than due to natural physical forces. Other possibilities aside from ice include a submarine volcano erupting deep beneath the seafloor, a massive geological event beneath the sediments, or even a burst of energy from the Earth's core. All are geological phenomena, but lack the mystery that the Bloop evokes. Theory 3. A man-made signal? This is where things get intriguing and most controversial. Some independent researchers, and not a few conspiracy theorists, have suggested the Bloop is not a natural sound. It is a product of technology. Why? The bloop frequency is in the range that sonar and naval communications equipment sometimes use, low, wide, and easy to transmit. The intensity was strong but controlled, like a signal sent with a purpose. The location of the broadcast coincided with areas of secret naval research. And finally, it only happened once, not repeatedly, not periodically, which suggests maybe a test device, or worse, a lost device emitting a distress signal. One extreme theory even suggests it's a communication signal from a lost research station at the bottom of the sea, like a military facility or even a nuclear submarine. There's no concrete evidence, but there's no way to disprove it either. Theory 4. Alien or interdimensional signal. This is the far-fetched part, but it's also what makes the bloop so alluring to those who love the fringe theory. Some theories suggest the bloop is a signal from an alien spacecraft or device crashing into the ocean. It is the sound of a space portal opening, where an object moves from another dimension to Earth. Or more simply, it is a hello emitted not for humans to understand, but for others to receive. Many people think of other events in space, such as the WOW signal, also undeciphered, and believe that this could be an underwater version of a cosmic signal. If you were an extraterrestrial intelligence, you would not come from open space. You would be hidden in the ocean where humans have no access. While these theories are full of science fiction, the interesting thing is no one has been able to prove them wrong. The final theory, an event that has never happened before and will never happen again. This is the possibility that has most scientists silent. Maybe the bloop was a single, unique, unrepeatable, unexplained event and will never happen again. Which makes it sound like a phantom sound coming from a point in the physical universe we don't know about. A bug in a sensor system, but too perfect to be a bug. Or worse, a brief warning, one we're not smart enough to understand. End of chapter 3. Science always begins with skepticism. It tries to explain the unknown with the known. But with the bloop, science is like a small lamp shining into the endless ocean, where there's only a flicker of light, then darkness again. If the bloop is biological, then we've never seen anything like it. If it's geological, then it's the strangest impact ever recorded. If it's man-made, then whoever made it is keeping its mouth shut. And if it's not of this world, then we've heard the first whisper of something else. Great. We followed the bloop sound through some strange and mysterious theories in the previous chapter. But what makes the bloop sound even more creepy is that it's not alone. Let's continue our exploration with Chapter 4, Other Mysterious Sounds. Is the bloop just the beginning? If you think the ocean is just filled with waves, whale calls, and a few undersea earthquakes, then prepare yourself. Because the bloop is just a small piece of the strange symphony that the ocean whispers to us. Every year, every season, every body of water. In this chapter, we'll explore 6 other mysterious sounds recorded by NOAA and many global sensor networks. They're just as unusual as the bloop, and sometimes even more haunting. 1. The Upsweep, the song that never ends. Spiral calendar first recorded, 1991. Round pushpin location, along the mid-Pacific Ridge. Speaker high volume sound, a series of long hissing sounds rising and falling like someone is tuning a giant guitar. The strangest thing? It appears seasonally. It's especially clear in the spring and fall. More than 30 years have passed, and it still hasn't stopped. Many theories say it's an underground volcano or a moving magma flow. But why is it seasonal? Is it a giant creature that wakes up at certain times? Or an ancient device that automatically activates twice a year? 2. The whistle, whistling from the deep. Spiral calendar recorded, 1997. Round pushpin location, Western Pacific. Speaker high volume sound, a long, drawn-out whistle, as if from a boiler venting air, but in the depths of the ocean. Creepy. The sound lasted only a few seconds, then completely silent, and never repeated. Only once, then disappeared, as if someone or something gave a warning, then quietly returned to its hiding place. 3. Slow down. Melting ice ghost or sleeping monster? Spiral calendar recorded 1997. Round pushpin location, Eastern Pacific. Speaker high volume sound. A low, decreasing frequency hiss over about 7 minutes. Like a giant machine coming to a stop. NOAA thinks it could be icebergs grinding against the seafloor. But others see it differently. It sounded like the engine of a landing spacecraft or the heart of an ancient creature beating one last time before going to sleep. 4. Julia, the woman crying in the ocean. Spiral calendar recorded March 1st, 1999. Round pushpin location, South Pacific. Speaker high volume sound. A long, broken moan, like a woman whispering in deep water. What makes Julia stand out? It lasted more than 15 seconds, long enough to clearly analyze the frequency layers. And most importantly, NASA recorded Julia's sound at the same time as satellite images of a large, fuzzy object moving under Antarctica. Which hypothesis is scarier, an iceberg hitting a rock, or something the size of a city swimming underneath it? 5. Train, an unmanned train from the bottom of the ocean. Spiral calendar recorded May 3rd, 1997. Round pushpin location, Antarctica. Speaker high volume sound. A long, steady series of train-like sounds, echoing from the bottom. Sound like science fiction? No, it's an actual recording, with frequencies that change exactly as the train moves through different sections of the track. Who could build a railway under the sea? 6. 51 Peg. A signal from another planet? Spiral calendar recorded 1997. Round pushpin location, unknown. Speaker high volume sound. Almost like a radio signal, reproduced in water from an unknown source. The name 51 Peg comes from the planet 51 Pegasi b, where humans once suspected there was an extraterrestrial signal. But in this case, the sound is coming from the ocean. Suppose a space traveler lands in the ocean and then transmits a signal to its parent star. Would we recognize it, or will we just hear it as a water running? SOFAR network, the ocean's divine ear. What allows us to hear these sounds is the SOFAR, sound fixing and ranging channel, a layer of water at a depth of about 600 meters, where sound travels extremely far with very little attenuation. That's why sounds like Bloop or Julia can be recorded thousands of kilometers away. We can hear things that we shouldn't hear. It's like accidentally tapping into a conversation that wasn't meant for human ears and being haunted forever afterward. The creepy commonality, nothing fully explained. No one, not even scientists, can fully explain all of these sounds. Some have been labeled icequake, underwater volcano, terrestrial rift, but these explanations still feel inadequate. A coincidence is random. Twice might be a trend, but more than 6 sounds at different times, different places, with no plausible explanation, it's a pattern, and that pattern is telling us something. End of chapter 4. The bloop is not a lone echo in the ocean's darkness. It is part of a strange and eerie symphony, where every note is an unsolved mystery. And the big question is, what are we listening to? Nature or some intelligence beyond us? Great. Enter chapter 5, where the mystery extends beyond the depths of the water into the corridors of research, the closed-door meetings, and the war of opinions of scientists. Because the sound of the bloop doesn't just challenge human hearing, it divides the scientific community. Chapter 5, Science versus Mystery, the fierce debate behind the scenes. When science can't explain something, it has 2 choices: to deny it or to remain silent. From a diary of an anonymous NOAA researcher, 1998. When the bloop was first recorded in the summer of 1997, it became an instant phenomenon. But not because people knew what it was. It was because no one knew what it was. And as silence began to spread from the research agencies, curiosity turned to doubt. 1. NOAA, the first gate to mystery. NOAA, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, was the first organization to announce the bloop. But just a few years later, they announced that the sound could be the result of ice cube the disintegration of the Antarctic ice sheet. A short, simple, and unconvincing explanation. Independent researchers began to ask, why did it take 6 years to come up with the ice crack hypothesis? Why did the sound have the characteristics of a living organism rather than a physical shock? Why was it recorded by multiple instruments thousands of kilometers apart at the same time? Many within NOAA also disagreed with the official explanation. Some were even transferred after proposing a more unusual hypothesis. Two scientific sides, reality divided. Face A, those who follow the physical explanation. They believe bloop sounds are caused by ice floats, cracks, and impacts on seafloor. Everything can be explained by geological models. The bloops having the same frequency as living creatures is just an acoustic coincidence. Face B, nonconformist marine biologists. They counter. Sounds have an organized structure, like the way whales or intelligent creatures make sounds. Amplitude and frequency variations like voices or calls. Long, directional echoes, like sound with a purpose. Not everything that makes a sound is an earthquake. Sometimes it's a breath. Dr. Michelle Lauron, bioacoustics expert. 3. A theory that was once forbidden to mention, Leviathan. There is an unofficial name in the scientific community, passed around through closed meetings or internal emails. That name is Leviathan Protocol, that is, monster hypothesis. This is the concept that a giant creature that has never been recorded, possibly larger than any known living creature, makes bloop sounds. It lives in areas too deep for humans to reach with current equipment. Other sounds such as Julia, upsweep, slow down, could be the sounds of other leviathans, although not officially announced. Many leaked emails show that internal researchers have seriously discussed this possibility. 4. Media, from mystery creature to ordinary iceberg. The strange thing is, in the early years, 1997 to 2002, articles often suggested that the bloop was a large, unidentified sea creature. But just a few years later, the narrative took a 180-degree turn, and all media began using the same phrase. The bloop is the sound of ice cracking in Antarctica. What happened? Was there some kind of hidden directive issued to the scientific press? Or were researchers actively normalizing an extremely unusual phenomenon to avoid public panic? 5. The secret 2004 meeting cannot be released. A leaked account from a former NOAA employee states, in 2004, a secret meeting at MIT brought together oceanographers, acousticians, and representatives of the U.S. Navy. The goal? To review the unusual sounds recorded from 1997 to 2003. The minutes of the meeting have never been made public, but insiders reveal a notable phrase that has been repeated many times. It cannot be published at this time because there is no appropriate scientific framework. Some people understand this phrase as, we have no way to prove it, but we cannot deny it either. 6. The hidden fear in the scientific community. There is a truth that few dare to say. The fear of losing personal reputation always weighs heavily on the research community. A scientist who talks about giant sea monsters will immediately be considered eccentric, without hard evidence. So, many studies on mysterious sounds are never published. Researchers who want to keep their seats at major institutes choose to remain silent. Chapter 5 End. The bloop is more than a sound in the ocean. It is a whisper that divides the scientific community, forcing people to choose between the safety of the known and the strange allure of the unknown. We don't lack answers. We just lack the courage to accept that maybe there are things beyond our understanding. Anonymous researcher in Leviathan Protocol profile. Great. Now it's time to dive deeper into the mystery. If the previous chapters painted a picture of haunting sounds from the ocean floor, this chapter will begin to probe a spine-chilling question. Has anyone ever seen the thing that makes that sound? Chapter 6. Tracing the Trail. Strange Images and Hidden Encounters. 1. Satellite versus Bloop. The strange encounter of 1997. In a previously unpublished report, a technician from the Earth Imagery Analysis Center, EI, revealed that in August 1997, Just weeks after the Bloop was recorded by underwater sonar stations, an infrared satellite image detected a strange object in the South Pacific Ocean. Image description: a giant area of unusual water disturbance, extending more than 3 kilometers. There was a subthermographic glow, stretching out like the path of a large object under the water. The motion is not wave motion. It is not melting ice, and it is not geological activity. It looks like a swimming creature. Internal notes from a satellite image expert. After that, all data was archived under an internal code that is not publicly accessible. The LV 9712 read classified. 2. Recorded by the survey ship. We saw its shadow. The story has never been reported. Only exists in a recording shared anonymously through a forum of former naval officers. The survey ship Mariana Tracer, operating near the area where the Bloop is believed to have originated, recorded a huge sonar response, exceeding any known size standard for marine life. Notable specs: response depth, about 3,000 meters. Estimated object length, more than 75 meters. Response repeated 3 times over 12 minutes, then disappeared. Even stranger, soon after the ship returned to land, all data was retrieved by unknown federal unit. 3. Fishermen's tales, sound from under the ship. Scientists aren't the only one. Many fishermen, whalers, and civilian sailors also recounted strange experiences in the late 1990s. A spooky quote: "We heard a sound like someone calling, but not from the surface of the sea. From under the ship, a long, low roar like something was passing by. Not a ship, not a wave. It made the water vibrate." Chilean fishermen, near Antarctica, 1998. Some fishing boats even lost their sonar signals, or their electronic equipment went haywire, coinciding with the breathing, vibration, or calling sounds they heard. 4. Mysterious coral destruction. Traces of something giant? A 1999 ecological report from a survey team at Pitcairn Island reported that a 5-acre coral reef had been completely destroyed, with no trace of humans, chemicals, or blasting. Scene description: the coral appeared to have been scraped or torn in large chunks. Some of the coral was smooth, as if by something heavy and slow-moving. Strange. This area is less than 500 kilometers from the location where the Bloop was recorded. 5. The depth camera was burned. During an experiment to lower a camera to a depth of 4,000 meters in the Macquarie Trench in 2002, an area near where the Bloop was recorded, an Australian team of scientists, working with NOAA, recorded a series of blurry images. The last image recorded a circular black shadow, 15 times larger than the camera. Then, a completely black screen. When the camera was pulled up, the lens was cracked and scorched as if it had been subjected to high heat, not suitable for underwater environments. No one could explain the phenomenon. The report concluded it could be a mechanical failure or unusual geological conditions. But the team's engineers were more succinct. "We do not think it is a rock." 6. Rumor from the secret research station. They saw its eyes. There is an unverified rumor, but it is always mentioned in the ocean conspiracy theorists. An unmapped research station operating near the coast of Antarctica. In 2003, on a midwinter night, the depth sensing equipment went off the alarm for 16 minutes. When a 360-degree rotating camera was activated, it recorded only a single frame. In that picture, there was light reflecting from a giant, bulging eye, the diameter of which was estimated to be twice that of a human body. If it really is an eye, the creature must be over 100 meters long. Notes from the equipment engineer, anonymous. After that, the entire station was upgraded and the research team was replaced. End of Chapter 6. Sound is the first evidence. But if all these strange pieces of the puzzle match up, satellite imagery, sonar recordings, thermal imaging, eyewitness accounts, then we're onto something really big and really real. The Bloop could be a call, and the creature that's making the call is still lurking in the ocean. Unpublished notes from the Mariana Tracer survey team. Great! We are entering the darkest part of the mysterious maze, where not only science is challenged, but humanity's entire view of extraterrestrial life may have to be rewritten. Welcome to the most thrilling chapter. Chapter 7, The Alien Hypothesis. Is the bloop not from Earth? If you hear an inexplicable sound, ask yourself, is it really from Earth? Anonymous Research Protocol, Project Rorschach Deep. 1. The sound doesn't fit Earth biology. One of the details that has puzzled scientists is this. The bloop doesn't exactly match any biological sound ever recorded, although it does sound like the sound of a giant sea creature. So what doesn't fit? The frequency is very low, but the intensity is extremely strong, like it was artificially amplified. There is a modulation of direction, a kind of intelligent wave guidance, a targeted signal. There are no biological cues like waves crashing, breathing, or a steady beat. As one acoustician put it, if this is a creature, it must be a creature more intelligent than any we know. If not, then who is making it? 2. Hypothesis. A device at the bottom of the ocean that does not belong to Earth? Imagine the possibility that the sound is not coming from a living creature, but from a giant device buried deep in the ocean that may have been there for thousands of years, or that has only recently been activated. This is not so far-fetched. If we remember, the ocean is still 80% unexplored. A high-tech device designed to operate under pressures of thousands of meters could be hidden in the deepest trenches that humanity has ever reached. The name of this theory, as the conspiracy theorists call it, the Silent Dome Theory. Plot. An ancient alien machine is buried deep under the South Pacific Ocean. A bloop is an automated ping signal sent out periodically, similar to how submarines send sonar pings to check the status of their systems. 3. Other signals in the ocean. Further evidence for the alien device theory. The bloop is not the only mysterious sound. Also included, sound name year recorded characteristics similar to bloop. Julia 1999 high intensity, widespread, unknown source. Upsweep 1991. Present consists of regular beats like coded signals. Slow down 1997 long-lasting sound, like the deceleration of a mechanical device. Whistle 1997 soft, strong directional whirring, like a communication signal. Independent researchers have hypothesized that this is a system of signals coming from many devices scattered in the deep sea. A simulation model was built from the recorded locations. They form a giant arc around Antarctica. Is this a surveillance network or connection of something that is not human? 4. Bloop and SETI, a strange connection. SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, usually focuses on radio waves from outer space. But in 2001, a group of SETI researchers working on undersea data released an unusual piece of data. What do they find? The bloop signal pattern matched the waveform used in interstellar communication by 82% using acoustic mechanisms, a theory built on space physics research. The wave structure includes nonlinear repetition period, cyclical direction variation, environmentally calibrated frequency. An anonymous member of the research team once said, "If an alien civilization uses the ocean for communication or control systems, this is the first evidence of it." The research team was soon disbanded, and all the data was recovered by an unnamed federal party. 5. The calling sound? A more haunting theory. The bloop is not an output, it's an answer. What if an alien signal was broadcast into the ocean, and something below the seafloor, an unknown creature, device, or life form? Answer back. The bloop in this theory is a response, an answer, but not to humans. We may have just overheard a conversation that wasn't ours. From a leaked report of the SETI Deep Acoustics team, 2002. 6. Solving the mystery. Has a portal opened? Some serious sci-fi scholars have put forward the terrifying scenario. Mysterious sounds, including the bloop, are a sign that a space portal is opening or that a trigger is being activated. The timing, 1997 to the early 2000s, coincided with the awakening of an ancient alien system. The earthquakes, the unusual water currents, the loss of signal equipment were just side effects of this process. Chapter 7 Conclusion. Bloop is a question from a strange place, deep under thousands of meters of ocean or millions of light years in space. And when humans happen to hear that question, the only thing missing is the answer. Don't think the Earth is the first place to make a sound. Maybe it's just an echo from the hypothetical silent dome. Great. We've heard the call. We've tracked the creature. We've suspected an extraterrestrial presence. But now we're faced with the biggest question of all. Why? And who? We'll want to bury the truth about the Bloop. Welcome to the darkest chapter of this journey. Chapter 8. The Buried Efforts. Who's hiding the truth about the Bloop? 1. Censored reports. Interference from above. Shortly after the Bloop was recorded by NOAA, detailed reports were made public for a brief period in 1997. But by mid-1998, the Bloop information page was taken offline for a few weeks. When it returned, a section detailing the sound had been shortened. The original recordings were replaced with compressed versions that no longer contained the full frequency data. An anonymous former NOAA technician said, "We had the raw Bloop recordings, over 2 minutes long, much more detailed. Then one day, someone from the Department of Defense came in, took the originals, and told us to delete all copies." Account leaked on the Deep Sea Truth Forum. 2. The emergence of non-NOAA advisors. After the Bloop was discovered, the NOAA acoustics team was suddenly augmented by a group of acoustics and physics experts outside the government system. They didn't wear name tags. They didn't sign reports. But they were present at every important data analysis session. As one former researcher put it, they often interfered with the direction of the investigation, demanding that hypotheses that had no clear biological basis be discarded. Since 1999, all research involving low-frequency sound in the South Pacific has been subject to pre-approval by an interagency committee. We were advised to stop using the word mysterious. Instead, it was naturally unidentified. A cleaner phrase, more harmless. 2,000 internal notes. 3. Projects that were abruptly terminated. During the period 2000 to 2005, at least 3 independent scientific projects involving deep-sea acoustics were terminated midway through. Project name host organization status. Deep Ocean Echo Map University of Washington stopped mid-2002. Project Sonu's Korea Research Institute stopped after second attempt. Aquarius Pulse Tracker Chilean nonprofit research group, all operations ceased in 2004. Officially documented reasons include insufficient funding or unsuitable environmental conditions. But team members tell a different story. We received warnings from agencies we had never worked with. They said the project had the potential to interfere with sensitive underwater military systems. Former Sonu's researcher. 4. A secret organization. WhisperNet and undisclosed sensors. Non-governmental researchers have discovered a network of sonar sensors not listed by NOAA or any civilian organization, scattered across the South Pacific. Internally known as WhisperNet. Features. Disguised as biological research buoys, capable of picking up ultra-low frequencies and transmitting data via separate satellites. Placement coincides with the Bloop, Julia, upsweep sound recording areas. Leaked documents, 2011 state. WhisperNet is operated as an early warning network, not for anti-submarine warfare, but for monitoring something very large and very quiet. 5. Reasons for the cover-up? Why aren't they letting the public know? Assuming what we speculate is true, the Bloop is a signal from an ancient being, an alien device, or an inexplicable phenomenon. Why cover it up? A few reasons have been suggested by conspiracy theorists and experts. Avoiding global panic. A giant creature sleeping at the bottom of the ocean. An interplanetary communication device lying thousands of feet below us. That's enough to cause existential fear, shaking the entire foundation of science. Military reasons. If there really is alien technology at the bottom of the ocean, whichever nation controls, it will be far ahead of the rest, technologically, energetically, and strategically. There have been consequences. Some rumors suggest that in 2003, an attempt to penetrate the source of the Bloop caused unexplained tremors, equivalent to a magnitude 6 earthquake, and affected the South Pacific's ocean currents for 3 weeks. 6. We were ordered never to speak of it again. A story told on free radio in South America. I worked for a seismic unit affiliated with the military. In 2001, we set up equipment near the old Bloop site. On the third night, the equipment recorded a wave. Not a wave, but a deep roar that echoed through the entire bottom. The next day, we were picked up by helicopter. All the computers were confiscated. The commander said bluntly, "If you speak of this, it will be the last time you work." End of chapter 8. There are sounds we should not hear. There are truths that we should not hear. The world is not ready to accept it. And there are questions that, just by asking them, the entire system has to find a way to cover them up. It's not the bloop that's scary. It's the way people keep quiet about it. Anonymous quote, leaked NOAA internal document. Great, we've gone through sounds, creatures, devices, and even attempts to silence the truth. But now we have to go back. Not years, but thousands, even tens of thousands of years, to find out if the bloop is really recent or if it's just an echo from a distant past that humans have forgotten. Chapter 9. Bloop and Ancient Mythology. Echoes from a Lost Civilization. 1. Echoes from Prehistoric Times. Here's something to ponder. When the bloop sound is analyzed in terms of waveform, distortion, and propagation patterns, it doesn't look like a completely random signal. Instead, some independent experts believe it has a regular, repetitive quality, like a sonic ritual transmitted from an ancient ritual or a kind of mechanical memory left behind. This leads to a bold hypothesis. The bloop wasn't the first. It is a reenactment of something that happened long ago and is repeated in cycles. 2. Ancient civilizations and legends of awakening sounds. Look at ancient cultures around the world and the stories of mysterious sounds associated with the sea. Waterwave Maori, New Zealand. The legend of Tangaroa, the sea god, who, when sleeping too long, would let out a deep roar from the ocean floor, causing fish to disappear and the waves to revolt. If the ocean groans, men should be afraid, for it is remembering something that has been sealed away. A note from the Ngati Porou tribe. Cyclone Rapa Nui, Easter Island, culture. Talk of a giant song from the earth that resounds on the nights of lunar eclipses and is often associated with the disappearance of people or animals. Spiral Shell Mapuche legend, southern Chile. Referring to an ancient creature called Koi Koi Vilu, sealed deep in the sea trench. Every 500-year cycle, it would sleep, emitting noises that would change the surface of the sea, even disrupting the weather. 3. Ancient Egyptian and Babylonian texts. Audio recordings of the Great Water God. You will be surprised to know that ancient Egyptian civilization also had strange records. In an inscription in the Abydos Temple, there is a record of the voice of none, a sound from the deep that can awaken structures buried under the sea. In Babylon, the oldest Sumerian clay tablet, about 4000 BC, describes, when the moon is swallowed, the ocean will utter the words of the first times, and the ancient tools will stir. These lines sound like myths, but when juxtaposed with phenomena like bloop, one cannot help but wonder, what did they hear that we are hearing? 4. Surprising links to Atlantis. Plato, in his Timaeus and Critias, describes Atlantis as a superior civilization whose technology combined sound and energy to manipulate matter. They could make rocks float, waters rise, and the sea change color, all by vibration. Plato, Critias, paragraph 114c. Some scholars believe that Atlantis is more than a myth. When that civilization sank into the sea, they left behind a device or structure that resonated with sound, something we can hear echoes of today. Could the bloop be a leftover cry for help, an unfinished alarm signal, or a key that awakens something deep down? 5. Ancient maps and traces that match the location of bloop. Let's look at some ancient maps. Hyrie Reis, 1513, shows the detailed shape of Antarctica before it was covered by ice, something that was beyond the capabilities of the time. Orontius Phineas, 1531 describes the land where Bloop is now recorded, with a note where the deep sea roars at the spring equinox. These maps are not just geographical indications. They can be warnings for the future, that something lies below. Dr. Hans Kettering, marine archaeologist. 6. Unnatural reef structures near Bloop recorded. In 2013, a geological survey vessel jointly operated by the University of Chile and South Korea stumbled upon an unnaturally shaped reef chain, located about 180 kilometers from where Bloop was recorded. Composed of rows of rocks, more than 1,400 meters long. Some of the blocks bear wave-like etchings, resembling acoustic signals. Although their purpose is unclear, one scholar says, if the ocean is the Earth's record, then this is the oldest hard drive. Chapter 9, Conclusion. We often think of the ocean as the place where life began, but perhaps it also holds the last echoes of a civilization long gone. Bloop, maybe not the first. It's the second, a repeat, a signal that something is coming back. If you listen long enough, the ocean will tell you a story from before fire. Ancient Tongan legend. Wonderful. This will be the final chapter, where all that we have discovered will be put on the operating table of reason, where modern science will try to explain the impossible, and we will face an uncomfortable question. If it can't be proven, does it mean it doesn't exist? Chapter 10. Science or the Supernatural. How modern science faces the inexplicable. 1. Science, the pursuer or the concealer. Since the Bloop sound was recorded in 1997, the scientific community has fallen into two distinct camps. Campus 1, the skeptics. Think of the Bloop as a natural phenomenon. Think of it as coming from an ice quake or an unusual type of underwater earthquake. Their argument is based on the Bloop has not been recorded again with a similar intensity since 1997. There is no clear biological or mechanical evidence. The second faction, the open-minded, including independent oceanographers, acoustic physicists, and some evolutionary biologists. They argue that the sound intensity and the repeating wave structure do not fit with a normal natural phenomenon. There is a possibility that there are creatures or devices beyond the current understanding of humanity. Science should not be a prison of the known, but a door to the unknown. Dr. Aiko Nakamura, ocean acoustics expert. 2. Acoustic reproduction experiments. Recreating the Bloop? From 2005 to 2020, many research groups attempted to simulate the Bloop sound artificially. Some notable experiments. Microscope Deep Echo Project, Norway, using a powerful underwater speaker system to recreate the Bloop sound. Result: only creating a sound similar in frequency, but unable to achieve the amplitude and transoceanic propagation. We can create a similar sound, but there is no way to make it echo thousands of kilometers like Bloop. Deep Echo Report 2011. Test Tube G-Class Sonar Experiment, Korea, USA. Simulating the waveform of Bloop in iceberg conditions. Conclusion: a similar wave can be created, but lacks the regular random distortion factor, which makes a living creature unique. 3. Unclassified creatures. Existence denied? If it is not a machine, not a geological phenomenon, then maybe it is a living creature, but no bodies, genetic samples, or biological evidence have ever been found. No imaging, thermal, or motion data from the area. Yet modern biologists are still discovering 5,000 to 10,000 new species every year, many of which have existed unnoticed for hundreds of years. More than 80% of the ocean remains unexplored. So how can we be so sure that nothing lives there? Sylvia Earle, world-leading oceanographer. 4. A threshold of knowledge. Modern science is facing a paradox. The more we know, the more we discover that we don't know. The Bloop may be a single signal, a non-repeating phenomenon, but it breaks the current limits of understanding ocean sound. It opens up the possibility that there are creatures beyond biological classification. There are technologies that are not human, or there are ancient sonic traditions that have survived under the ice for millions of years. The finale, when the ocean whispers, Will we hear, or will we forget? We have gone through 10 chapters, from the first signal, through scientific and supernatural theories, to ancient legends and attempts to cover up the truth. And now we are left with one final question. What if the bloop was not an accident, but a message? Will we understand what it was trying to say? An echo from the depths, or from the future? Could the bloop be a wake-up call for ancient creatures? A warning bell for present-day civilization? Or simply a way for the ocean to remind us? I still have many secrets, and you just barely touched the water's edge. Thank you for making it all the way to this 25,000-word journey. If you hear a deep, strange, echoing sound in your heart as you read this, remember, not everything that resonates can be seen, and not everything that is invisible is not real. The world is not only what we see, but also what we do not yet understand.